All right, let's get to football. Tennessee Titans. Buck Reising, he's getting ready to get on the air. So we only have him for a short time. You're cranking it up in less than an hour, right, Buck?
We're fired up on this Tuesday, but yeah, we got time. We got plenty of time to talk some shop here.
All right, Buck. Let's start with, I like to play the game. First of all, thank you for your time today and for joining us. I like to ask the three questions. Where have you been? Where are you now? Where are you going? Okay, so let's start with the Titans. We know that 2 years ago, because the Bengals played them in the playoffs down in Nashville, 2 years ago they're the number one seed. They had a quarterback who was very efficient. May not have played well in that game against the Bengals, but very efficient, solid quarterback, maybe not great. Got Henry in the backfield, good offensive line, solid defense, number one seed. Then last year, what happened last year to the Titans?
Well, to be honest with you, I think they were a bit fraudulent in 2021. And so 2022 was, I think, a closer version of what we all expected that football team to look like, despite them having gutted it out in a big spot, getting the number one overall seed that season, collapsing pretty dramatically against the Cincinnati Bengals. But I think ultimately the thing you have to come back to is, one, health. They set a record in 2021. They used 91 players over the course of a season, and then did almost the same thing last year, 86. They were a mash unit, and the NFL changed the rules so you couldn't have unlimited amount of players returning from injured reserve in 22. And then, of course, they traded away A.J. Brown, which turned out to be one of the dumbest decisions in the NFL last year, for a team that has struggled mightily to get the wide receiver position right. Finally found one, and then let the Philadelphia Eagles take him all the way to a Super Bowl. So a couple of different things happened to last year's Titans team, but 2021 felt like a bit of a flash in the pan. 22 just felt like the bottom fell out.
There seems to be, from the outside looking in, you tell me if this is accurate or not, because you've forgotten more about it than I'll ever know when it comes to these Titans. There seems to be, friction might be the wrong word. Perhaps it's just a different vision on where the Titans are going. Maybe starting in ownership, but then you start drifting down to the general manager all the way down to the head coach and Mike Vrabel. Is that a fair statement or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair statement. This is Mike Vrabel's show. I know they hired a new general manager this offseason and ran Carthon, but with Mike, his presence kind of looms heavy over all of these things. Now, Amy Adams Strunk is the controlling owner here. It's been a night and day difference in the organization since she took control in that way. Bud Adams, the founder of the Tennessee Titans, the Houston Oilers, going back through his family, they had a couple of rough patches, but Amy really got the thing right. And then in letting Mike stay and firing John Robinson as the general manager, whether it was a power struggle or not, she definitely gave more power to Mike in the way that things are going to continue to be run here. And there has been a bit of tension in the last year. It's rare that you see a general manager who had, to that point, 6 consecutive winning seasons get fired in December of what was at the time a winning season. The Titans had a winning record when John Robinson was fired. And while Mike Vrabel didn't actively jockey for John Robinson to be let go, at that point, there was a general shift in that the organization was acknowledging, yeah, it's more about the personnel than it is about the coaching. And whether there was substantial tension there or not, Mike Vrabel was the one who was given the benefit of the doubt. So now they're in a different position. They're trying to reboot this thing. The 2019 AFC Championship was kind of the peak of what this Titans run was. And now that's no longer. They lost 7 straight games last year. Everybody is going to be hyper scrutinized. A lot of turnover has already happened on the roster, with yet more to come, probably in future off seasons. But yeah, things have certainly been tense. And now with Mike Vrabel in as big a personnel control situation as he's ever been, it's as much scrutiny as he's ever had on him in this job, where he's had a lot of success, to be fair.
Look, I don't know if anybody around here really knows anything about it except for maybe Gene Smith, the athletic director at Ohio State, or the president at Ohio State. You know where I'm going with this here. Look, I'm an Ohio State fan, but I'll be the first to admit that the two most obnoxious groups of fans in the country are Ohio State football and Kentucky basketball. They think they should win every game and never lose a game and win championships every year.
You must have seen my IU diploma behind me if you're throwing.
Well, my
Kentucky
son's going to IU starting next year, so he was just there yesterday. We love the Hoosiers around here. So let me ask you this. Was there any legitimate fear when that story started to sneak out there last year that Vrabel might consider, if the opportunity presented itself, to go back to his alma mater as head coach?
Oh, sure. I mean, they could double his salary. Like, the NFL does not have the resources that college football does, which may seem counterintuitive to a lot of sports fans, but I mean, that's the facts. Like, Ohio State could very easily double his salary and give him the kind of full control that we know that coaches love, right? I mean, these are inherently control freaks, and that's fine. They need to be in their positions. And Mike, in a different environment, would succeed at a very, very high level at his alma mater or any college football program that chose to try and bring him in. Now, how realistic that is for Mike, I don't think that it would have to be a very, very unpleasant ending here in Tennessee to send him from the pros to college. I think he wants to win a Super Bowl as badly as a coach as he did getting 3 rings as a player. I think it means a great deal to him, even as he loves Ohio State. So, yeah, absolutely real in terms of the threat there for Titans fans. But I think for Vrabel, he's going to try and see this thing through as much as humanly possible. And then if the escape cord needs to be pulled or whatever, if things go really badly here in Tennessee, you could do a lot worse than Ohio State, given that Ryan Day was getting a lot of heat with the way that things finished for them this season. But right now, it looks like they still have a lot of things to figure out as far as their NIL operations. It would have to be a much higher functioning outfit in this modern day of college athletics, I think, to really be an attractive proposition for Mike Vrabel to just up and leave of his own volition.
Yeah, I think Day was taking a lot of heat. He certainly bounced back with the way they played Georgia in that semifinal game, but that's not what we're talking about here. Okay, where the Titans are now. If I hear you right, Buck, do you believe even in a division, which is there's not a juggernaut sitting around there in that division? Tennessee has been the juggernaut of that division by and large. Jacksonville certainly was better last year and got to the playoffs, and they've got some players, but I don't know if anybody's quite sold on them, joining the ranks of the Chiefs and the Bills and the Bengals and that kind of thing quite yet. Are you looking at this for Tennessee this year as a rebuild year?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they still have the quarterback. They still have Derrick Henry. But this is a rebuilding football team. You can't lose 7 straight games and blow up a lot of your veteran contracts the way that they needed to free up cap space, just to kind of get themselves back in a state that's functioning, and not consider it to be a rebuild. You can call it retool, remodel, whatever. There's a bunch of different R words you can use for what the Titans need to go through right now. But this is a competitive rebuild as any that you will find in the NFL. I think last year was the anomaly. I really do. Seven straight games for a Mike Vrabel team to fall completely flat that way after going to Green Bay and slapping around the Packers, even as Aaron Rodgers might have been in a lesser state at 7-3 at the time, and then going on to not win a single game since November 17th. That's not the norm around here, and I do believe that Mike gets the best possible effort and finish out of the guys that he brings in, even if he's finding them off the street. They've had a lot of practice with that in the last 2 years. But this is a roster that needs to get right, needs to get more competitive, needs to get more talent, because they were already pretty talent thin, and then they did the stupid thing, which was to give away A.J. Brown. So now it's forced a harder kind of rebuild in ways that they kind of already went through last year, but this offseason I think is really indicative, where they're not spending a lot of money. They're not shelling out a lot of free agent dollars, but they're spreading that across a lot of different bodies, because they just need dudes who can come in here and try and put together a competent football team, because they have not been that for quite some time. Well,
there was a little bit of talk there for a while about Tannehill not coming back, right?
Not here. I know that was a logical conclusion for people to draw when you look at his contract situation and some of the quarterback options that might be out there, but that's not ever been anything that we've heard locally, either that they've put out or around the organization. They've been pretty steadfast in the Tannehill thing. Now, you can take that for what it will. People say all kind of things at the combine that don't matter, and in the following weeks, Senior Bowl and stuff like that. But they've been very committed, both publicly and privately, to Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback for at least this coming season.
Okay. They have 2 first-round draft picks. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Just the one at 11 overall.
Oh, at number 1. Okay, all right. Then I misread that earlier. Okay, so where are they going, you think? Where would they like to go? Where do they need to go in the draft with that 11th pick?
To be honest, they need to go quarterback. He doesn't need to start right away. They don't need to have C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, 2 of the, I think, players who we're looking at as likely day one starters in the league. But if Anthony Richardson is at all a possibility for them, it makes a ton of sense. Tannehill's got 1 year on his contract. They tried it with Malik Willis last year. It didn't work. I think personally, you would rather see them go best player overall in the first round and then address the rest of the needs that they have throughout the next 2 days of the draft. Quarterback makes a ton of sense for a football team that needs to clear cap, is going to have their starter off the books and Derrick Henry off the books unless they extend him to bring down his cap hit in 2024. And Rand Carthon, as a general manager, needs to get that position right. More than anything, there are going to be options available for them to do that in this draft, whether they're surefire or not. It's an imperfect science, but first round quarterback makes a lot of sense for this particular football team.
All right. Well, the report came out last night that there were 6 teams that are having conversations, according to Adam Schefter at ESPN, that 6 teams had reached out to the Arizona Cardinals about that number 3 pick in the draft. Do you think the Titans are one of those 6, if you were a betting man?
Oh, I don't have to bet. I know. They were sniffing around Arizona's pick. Monty Ossenfort used to work in the front office here. He's their new GM. And they had been exploring options in a couple of different ways, not just 3rd overall with Arizona, but they had definitely been involved in pursuing that, not necessarily pursuing the trade, but looking into that as an option. So, yeah, definitely one of the teams that's explored that possibility.
All right. Last thing I want to ask you about here is you brought up Derrick Henry in the last year of his deal. Okay, this guy has been a phenomenal player. There's no doubt about it. And look, running backs, obviously you got to have an offensive line to create the room for them to run, and they've done that in his whole career at Tennessee. They've been a great running football team. Now, last year, there were games he was great, games not so great. I don't know how much of that is on him or not. And then the debate about running backs losing a step the older they get. How do you think they look at Henry at this point in time?
He's still the focal point of the offense. As long as he's on the roster, that's what Derrick is going to be. That's central to Mike Vrabel's core beliefs of how you win football games. Outrush the opponent, win the turnover battle, and have a higher QBR at the end of the game. Those are the 3 things that Mike walks into every team meeting, regardless of opponent, preaching. And those are the objectives that they set out beyond what they're going to do to prepare for that individual opponent. And Derrick's a big part of that. Now, losing a step is something you always start to look at with Derrick, but he did get caught from behind a few more times than we're used to seeing. Last season, coming off the broken foot looks fine. I think Derrick's still capable of being a highly productive NFL player. They have to get him a better support system, though. They have no wide receiver help without AJ. Traylon Burks, who they did get in the first round last year, spent a lot of time on the injury report. They need to get more consistency out of him. They have to keep teams from just outright loading the box against Derrick, because one of the worst offensive lines in football last year. Like they were god awful in front of Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill in 2022. They've blown that unit up. 4 of the 5 starters, 3 of the 5 starters have already moved on to different spots, either by release or in free agency. And there's still some shuffling parts that they're working through right now, but they have to get better skill positions around him to get defenders out of the box. They have to get a better offensive line in front of him. For both of the sake of Tannehill and Henry, because I honestly think they would do well to keep him around for a year beyond this one. I think Derrick's totally capable. 1,500 yards is one of his highest single-season outputs, and he did it on a terrible football team. I think that he's still got at least 2 more great seasons in him, but he's more dependent on what's around him than I think he's ever been before.
I got you. All right, Buck, we'll let you go. We know you got your show. We certainly appreciate your time today and bringing us up to date on the Titans. And all the best, my friend. Hopefully we'll catch up sometime after the draft and down the road. Thank you again.
Pleasure was mine. You have my contact information. Hit me up anytime.
All right. Thank you so much. Buck Reising down in Nashville, Tennessee. Nash Vegas.